Hello. In this video I will introduce the array. It is one of many types of data structures in programming. It is a collection. This here is a variable of type integer. This is another variable of type integer. I have declared two explicit variables, given them names, and assigned values to them. Each variable contains a single value. However, sometimes I might need multiple values and I might not know how many when I write the code. How would I flexibly define and assign an arbitrary number of variables? This is where the concept of collections come into play. There are many different common types of collections in programming, but here we will focus on the array. This is how an array is often portrayed. A single row of cells, and each cell can contain a value. A given instance of an array can contain values of a specific type. In this example, it contains integers. I can create an array containing characters if I like, or any other type, but generally all values must be of the same type. To work with the data inside the array, we must be able to reference the data. Remember, a single variable has a name, so we can reference that variable, but for the array we do not have an arbitrary name for each cell. Instead, each cell has a specific index. The first element is at index 0. The element at index 4 is a D. It has position 5. Most collections are what we call zero-indexed, meaning the first index is 0. In Java, we create an array like this. I define a variable of type int, array. The open-close brackets here indicates this is a variable of type int array. Then, as usual, a name of the variable. You can call it whatever you like within Java naming rules, of course. I call this one numbers. We have to assign a value to this int array variable called numbers. So I assigned it to be a new int array, and then the last part. When you create a new array, you must specify how many elements we can put into the array, how many cells there are. To do that, we put a number between the brackets on the right side here. I now have an array of integers and it can contain 8 elements. Upon initialization, the cells contain values based on what type the array is. Each simple type in Java has a default initial value. For example, int is defaulted to 0. The default boolean value is false, and so on. For objects like string, the default value is null, indicating nothing is there. And so the array is initialized with the default value in each cell. Now, having an array is no use if we cannot put anything inside it. It works like this. When I have my array, I can insert a value, in this case an integer, at a specific index. I access the numbers variable and use the brackets here to indicate that cell with index 3 should contain my new value, 42. I can assign another value to another index like this, or I could override the existing value. Now you have filled your array with elements, but how do we access them? Assume you have defined an array and filled in values. We retrieve elements by their index, meaning I can take out a value at a given index and put that value into a variable. So first I need a variable for my value. It must of course be of the same type as the values in my array. Then we use the brackets again to indicate which index we wish to access. Here I access the value at index 3. And which element is that? That's right, it's 42. Good job. Now it's important to know that here we do not remove anything from the array. For simple types we get a copy of the value, and for object types we get a reference to the same object in memory. But the array remains unmodified. Obviously there are much more to these arrays, but that will be covered later, elsewhere.